Hello, Wobbly Phil here. Last week's video about the Maverick mopeds that time forgot seems to have struck a chord with all you wrinkly riders out there. So much so that your nostalgia floodgates were opened and a tidal wave of tiny two-wheelers, some of which I'd never heard of, came pouring out in the comments. I've got enough material to make another 10 videos about mopeds, but quite frankly that would bore my already moderately numb arse off. So instead I've compiled a quick compendium of the most exotic that were mentioned in dispatches. The Creedler Fuette. Founded by Anton Kreidler in 1903 as a metal and wire factory, Kreidler started building motorcycles in 1951. 8 years later, a third of all German motorcycles were Kreidlers apparently, which is amazing because I'd never heard of them. Despite its seeming success, Kreidler was kaput by 1982, with Garelli buying up the name and badging some of their mopeds Kreidlers until 1988. The Guerelli Tiger. Garelli was, and still is, a storied Italian marque going all the way back to just after the first spot of global bother.
Right then, ladies and gentlemen, there you go, look. The Garelli.
The Tiger was probably best described as quirky and a bit highly strung, but they were popular in the school bike sheds, and occasionally you'd see buzzy bunches of them looking and sounding like a swarm of wasps, as one of you mentioned in the comments. The Moto Bean X7. Like other motorcycle companies, Moto Bean began in 1923 in France as a bicycle outfit. In 1949 it introduced the famous Mobylette, which sold like hot croissants. Later, in the 70s, like many other moped manufacturers, it went mad, and thinking folding mopeds would be a thing, coughed up this. In a shock reversal of typical French practice, the X7 was a triumph of function over form. The Flandria Testy. Sounding like the official term for a medical condition that describes an overexerted male gonad, the Flandria Testy, like Hercule Poirot, was Belgian. Unaware that I was of anything more interesting than chocolates having ever emerged from Belgium, a little digging reveals that Flandria was a family business, making kiddies' trikes, buggies, invalid carriages, and even a prototype car, as well as mopeds. I think the Testy must have been known as the Scorpion in English-speaking markets, as I couldn't find an actual Testy. Of course, I could always have dropped a bollock there. While we're exploring the realm of genito-urinary conditions, our next Maverick moped is the NSU Quickly. NSU was another German manufacturer, one that bucked the trend of beginning on bicycles and instead started with knitting machines. The Quickly was a bit of a hit in the 1960s, with over 1 million made and sold. NSU was also the license holder for our old friend, the
Wankel rotary engine,
and made the first ever rotary-engined car, the NSU Spider. Now, a rotary-powered moped, why didn't we ever see one of those? The Honda Hobbit. Quite why Honda chose to name a moped after J.R.R. Tolkien's fictional race of tiny troglodytes we'll probably never know. Honda has a habit of giving its cars and bikes outlandish names. Who could forget the Honda Hench, or indeed the Honda Hot Dog? The Hobbit appears to have been marketed under different names in different territories, and was known in the UK and Europe as the Camino. Made in Belgium between 1976 and 1991, with an automatic continuously variable transmission, the Hobbit yet again proves that Belgium wasn't taking the piss when it came to two-wheeled transport. The Raleigh Wisp. The Nottingham bicycle firm that enjoyed huge success with its chopper featured in last week's video with the Raleigh runabout. Not much more than a rally bicycle with a motor attached, it seems the Wisp was aimed fairly and squarely at the ladies, with Twiggy often seen enjoying a ride on one. As one patronising and presumably male reviewer wrote at the time, "I have seen women journalists who have never ridden a powered two-wheeler get on a Wisp and drive away without as much as a drop of the hat, or a hairlock out of place." And the menfolk needn't have worried about the Memsarb getting herself into difficulty on the road either, as this thing could barely reach 25 miles an hour. The Jatan Testy. Like its French cigarette namesake, Gitane made some pretty tasty two-stroke mopeds which exhaled almost as much wonderful aromatic blue smoke. A number of Jatan Testy models were marketed throughout the 1970s. Testy, by the way, was an Italian company with a fine pedigree of tasty small machines, which they made in collaboration with the likes of Jatan, Horex, and the previously mentioned Flandria. The Simpson S50. Simpson was an East German company, and during the Cold War, it was apparently quite a popular mark on the eastern side of the Iron Curtain. From its beautifully landscaped eco-factory in Zool in the Thuringian forest, it knocked out thousands of these basic but quite appealing machines in various iterations, all the way up until 1990, when the peace dividend following the fall of the Berlin Wall saw production turned over to pistols. In 2003, the company was declared bankrupt. If you're enjoying this video and would like to help support my meagre efforts, why not hit the super thanks button? A couple of quid buys me a cuppa, a fiver a sarnie, and a tenner a beachfront house in Jaywick. But what I'd really like to do is fund a longer video on the downfall of the British motorcycle industry in the 1970s. So if you can bung me a few quid towards that project, I'd be awfully grateful and even put your name in the credits. I remain your humble servant. Thank you. The Tomos Calibris. Tomos was another Eastern Bloc company based in Slovenia, which back in the day was part of Yugoslavia. TB and indeed H, I never knew that Yugoslavia had a motorcycle industry, although we were well aware of their Yugo cars in the 1970s. Many of their mopeds were based on puke machines, and they soldiered on until 2019. The Honda Zook. Bringing up the rear is another mad Honda, the Honda Zook. For a seemingly sensible company that makes the Honda Civic, I'm always amazed at how wacky its two-wheeled division could be. Last week we had the Moto Compo, a Taranku Baiku. Weighing just 43 kilos, the Zook was launched in 1989 as a city bike aimed at the young'uns, as a trendy new form of urban transport. It was supposed to be fun to ride and fun to look at, although to these cynical old eyes it bears an uncanny resemblance to a surgical appliance strapped onto a couple of shopping trolley wheels with footprints moulded into the tyres. The Zook was only around for a year, during which time Honda hoped to sell 40,000 of the bleeders. History does not record whether it was successful in that endeavour. And that's your lot. A metaphorical Three Phil's checkbook and pen will theoretically be winging its way to all you lovely Three Fillers who contributed to this quirky compilation in the comments. I'm always open to polite suggestions for interesting bikes to make videos about, and I'm working my way through what is already a very long list. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, and sharing to let YouTube know we're doing something right here at 3 Phils. Thank you.